Hi, 7th grade. Today you're going to be working on this video, and you also have a new ZLA article to work on. This video will have questions. We're going to start with this image. This image is on your packet, page 24. So if you look at this image, it's kind of sending you a message of what makes up the Renaissance, right? So if you look at the Renaissance itself is the plant, right? The Renaissance is the plant, and the plant has flowers, the beautiful flowers, right? The flowers are learning and the arts. Now, the Renaissance does not happen because of only one thing, right? The Renaissance happens because of many things coming together, many things that make up the Renaissance. And today we're going to look at a couple of them, right? The first thing you should think about is, where does the Renaissance take place? The Renaissance is represented here as a soil, right? The soil is the Renaissance, where it actually takes place, the physical location of it. And that is in, I'm going to make the color, that's in Europe, okay? Now, we also have the classical period is the biggest roots. The classical period is this roots, right? That shows you that the Renaissance is highly impacted by the classical period. If you remember, the classical period is the period the Renaissance people are trying to recreate, right? The arts, the sculpture, the focus on humans, right? Literature, arts, and so forth. But you also have these roots, these smaller roots, and these smaller roots represent the Middle Ages. So as much as the Renaissance wanted to get rid or wanted to push away the Middle Ages are still very highly important during the Renaissance. And the biggest thing that pops up is religion, right? Christianity was the largest, most important power in medieval Europe. And this still shows up in the Renaissance. Because if you look at some of the most famous art in the medieval period, you have, for example, the Last Supper. The Last Supper is Da Vinci's one of the most famous paintings in the world, right? And it is a religious piece by Da Vinci. It shows the last meal of Jesus when he says someone's going to betray him. You have Pieta by Michelangelo. I know it's Wikipedia, but I just want to show you guys the image. Another very famous image. This image, and starting next week, we're going to be focusing on the combination of classical ideas and religious ideas. So this image is a perfect example of classical Greek and Roman combined with religious ideas of the Middle Ages, right? This statue looks very Greek or very Roman. It's something that the Greeks and Romans would have done, right? But it is a religious piece. Jesus, the dead Jesus being held by the Virgin Mary. Here you have Michelangelo's David. Michelangelo's David, hopefully this is not too bad. Michelangelo's David is the statue of King David, which appears in the Old Testament, right? It is a religious piece, but by looking at it, you can see that it looks like a Greek statue or a Roman statue, like one of those gods from the Greek or Roman times. So I want you to know that during the Renaissance, you have this blend, this mixture of classicism, classical ideas, with religious ideas. So a balance between religion and classical ideas. Okay, so those are the statues that I want to show you. So the medieval period is still very, very popular. Not popular, the medieval period is over, but the emphasis of religion still goes into the Renaissance. This one is really big. Travel and commerce, because it is because of travel and commerce means trade, that Italy becomes so wealthy that people have extra money to spend on building a library or building a statue or paying an artist to paint a painting, right? The Mona Lisa was paid by a very, very wealthy merchant, silk merchant, that had extra money to paint this beautiful, beautiful drawing or painting. Here you have the growth of city-states, Milan, what's another one? Florence. There's a couple more. Those are the ones you need to know. Florence for sure. That's the birthplace of the Renaissance. And then last you have what gives it light, right? The people of the Renaissance thought of the Middle Ages as a time period of darkness, not physical darkness, but mental darkness, when people are ignorant, people are unenlightened. And the Renaissance is, according to the people of the Renaissance is completely different, where they have light, where they have knowledge, where they have ideas, right? So the Renaissance is very different. That's represented as the sun, which gives you light, and it gives you knowledge. So I might ask you to summarize these images. I will have questions, or this image. I will have questions to help to see if you understood what I just said. And then obviously the outcome of all this is the beautiful flowers. Okay, so I'm gonna move on. We're gonna do these pages a little later, but not today. Right now, I'm going to go to this page. This is page 27. Humanism. During the late 1300s, so the late 1300s in Italy, European began to turn their attention away from Christian church. That is not necessarily the most accurate thing, right? Religion is still very important, but I would have written that sentence a little different. I think that they, in addition to the religious ideas, they also began to focus on other things. Like many ancient Greek teachers, they began to value evidence and the use of reason to understand the world around them. Now, this image, in the image above, a medieval person might have said, oh, God might have wanted him to die. And he did, right? So in the medieval period, people didn't necessarily use reason to explain why things happened. They used their religious beliefs. Now, I'm not saying that just because you're religious, you're not a reasonable person. But that's how the Renaissance people viewed it, right? They might have said, oh, God, it was his time to go, right? A person of the Renaissance might have said, well, maybe he was tired. They're trying to find evidence to prove why he fell or why he got hurt. Maybe the stairs were too slippery, so they might go and test out the stairs. Maybe the railing is loose, so they might go and test out the railing. So they're trying to use observation with reason to explain natural phenomena or what's happening in the world, as opposed to just saying, there's nothing we can do. The scholars encouraged the investigation. So these are key words that I want you to know. The investigation of nature through reason and observation. So observe to try to explain why things are happening, right? This philosophy later became known as humanism, because the scholars encouraged human ideas. So in the Middle Ages, it was more like religious ideas, trying to find truth in religion, in the Bible. In the Renaissance, it's different. They're trying to find truth through reason, through observation, through experimentation. The humanists focus on the importance of human values instead of religious beliefs. Now, that's not necessarily correct as well. I think that, again, it's a blend of religious ideas and human ideas. The humanists focus on the importance of human ideas instead of religious beliefs. Galileo Galilei, if you are an early finisher, please research who this person is. Very, very important. He was a religious person, but he was also a scientist, right? Galileo Galilei, it's interesting, his name is kind of like his last name, was a scientist. He was from Italy, who learned by observation. In Galileo's time, most educated people agree with Aristotle's view that all objects in space revolved around Earth. So in the medieval period, people believed that the Earth was in the middle and everything else went around the Earth. Everything else went around the Earth, which we know is incorrect. Okay, the church also was teaching that everything went around the Earth in a perfect circle. So it wasn't, here's the Earth, and everything goes around the Earth in a perfect, it's not a perfect circle, but you know what I mean, right? They were teaching that everything in space was perfect. Everything in space was a perfect circle. Everything in space went around the Earth. The sun looks like it goes around the Earth, right? Because it looks like it goes around the Earth, but we know that that's incorrect. And people in the Middle Ages believe this. The church also was teaching that everything went around the Earth in a perfect circle. So remember that. Everything in space goes around in a perfect circle, according to the church, and everything in space is a perfect circle itself, like the moon. The church was also teaching that all planets and moons were a perfect circle. Okay? So this is called the geocentric theory. The geocentric theory teaches that everything goes around the Earth, the sun, the moons, the stars. Galileo observed that several moons went around the planet Jupiter. Wait, but doesn't that go against what the church was teaching? If those moons are going around Jupiter, how can they be going around Jupiter if everything goes around Earth? So he began to find evidence to disprove the church. How could everything go around Earth if there are moons that are going around Jupiter? Galileo also found that the moon had large craters or holes. When Galileo wrote about his discovery, a Christian court called a trial and found the scientists guilty of going against the teachings of the church. So he's like, look, there's craters on the moon, and he's getting hit by the telescope. Galileo was sentenced to house arrest for the last 9 years of his life. A very religious man who respected his Christian faith, Galileo accepted the sentence, but he continued to write and study from his home. The humanists study the classics. The classics are the Greeks and the Romans. In the works of the classics, Renaissance scholars found an earlier way of thinking similar to their own. The humanists recreated, remember, rebirth, classical ways in art. This is going to be huge, writing and architecture. And also, there's sculpture. I can't fit it there, but sculpture. Humanists believe that by studying the classics, they would better understand people and the world. Today, we refer to the study of literature, philosophy, and arts as the humanities. The humanities. Greeks and Roman civilizations fell long ago, but those civilizations continue to influence us today through the humanities. So so you'll have these as an ed puzzle questions. Who were the humanists? What were the classics? Why were the humanists often at odds? At odds means against or in conflict with the Catholic Church. So here you're going to identify if this is medieval or Renaissance. We'll do the couple. This will be on the ed puzzle. You can do this page on here if you want, or you can just do the ed puzzle. It's up to you. Identify the following as medieval ideas or Renaissance ideas of humanism. Explain why you made that choice. So I might ask you to tell me why. Studying how the body of a bird works. Study the movement of the tongue of a woodpecker. Would that be something that happened in the medieval period or the Renaissance? This one would be a Renaissance. Why? Because in the medieval period, the focus was primarily religion, right? People live short lives. They're trying to prepare for when they die, they go to heaven. So studying anything outside of that is considered like a waste of time, right? In the Middle Ages, because your goal is to understand God, understand the Bible, listen to the church. And in the Renaissance, people began to actually focus on other things, begin to focus on learning, on understanding how things work. Next one, reading the Bible over and over again to find answers to life's problem. This one will be, so this is Renaissance, I'll put an R. This is medieval, because the emphasis or the focus is primarily religious. Using religion to try to explain how life works or what are the issues in life. Writing a play about love. This is Renaissance because it focuses on human emotion, right? Some of the best plays in the world come out of the Renaissance. William Shakespeare wrote them in the 1500s in England. So this is something we'll focus on a little later, but the Renaissance is not just in Italy. It's throughout Europe. It's centered in Italy. It starts in Italy, but it does spread. So plays about love, because love is a human emotion. Love is a human interaction. That is of Renaissance. Writing a book about world history, spread of knowledge, and most likely non-religious. 4 will be Renaissance as well, because it's talking about spreading knowledge, spreading language, spreading history, math, science, whatever it might be. Creating a non-realistic statue of Jesus. This one is, there's 2 reasons why this is medieval. Because actually one main reason, and the main reason is non-realistic. If something is non-realistic, it means that it doesn't focus on human proportion or anatomy. During the Middle Ages, it was the message of Jesus, the message of the saints, right? Not focusing on if it's realistic or not. In the Renaissance, you will see that this becomes a huge part. People are trying to study the human body so that they can draw it correctly, so that they can sculpt it correctly, right? People are studying human anatomy, human science, to try to show the tendons of the human body. For example, if you look at Michelangelo's David, let's see if we can find one that's pretty good. Let's look at this one. Michelangelo's David, here you're going to be able to see the detail that Michelangelo uses. So Michelangelo's able to use his understanding of human anatomy, which is understanding of the body, to draw out very detailed ideas or very detailed parts of the human body, right? You can even see the veins. There's other pictures, but I don't want to run into like some issues with some close-ups. Here you can see the muscles, or here you see the veins again, right? You're able to see the rib cage. So the Renaissance, again, it's very religious, but it's also focusing on showing things that are much more realistic than the medieval period. Medieval sculpture, it's much less realistic, and it doesn't necessarily focus on like human emotion. Right? When you look at medieval sculpture, all the I don't know if it's on here, all of the statues kind of look the same. They all kind of look the same. They're all attached to the wall. They're all kind of like staring, and there's a lack of emotion and not very realistic. Another big difference is that in the Renaissance, a lot of the statues are nudes because they're trying to recreate similar statues to the ancient Romans and Greek. Let's move on. So this one is medieval. Writing a poem about the taste of water. This is Renaissance because, first of all, you're writing a poem, you're creating knowledge, and the taste of water is not religious. Developing a proof to a new math problem. This is Renaissance because it is a proof. It is developing knowledge for a secular topic. Secular means non-religious. Below is an image of the bubonic plague. Oh no, we're not doing that one. I think I'll stop here. So if you finish early, and I know some of you guys have been finishing early, you're more than welcome to review Renaissance arts versus medieval art. Same thing with, you can do Renaissance architecture versus medieval architecture, Renaissance sculpture versus medieval sculpture. There's a number of you that are missing work. I do log into Hapara once in a while, and it does bother me when I see students just playing a game. Today I did pause someone's screen because if you're doing that, I mean, you shouldn't have your computer on, right? You should be building more knowledge every single day. There is a lot of information on the internet that you can take advantage of. If you go to Renaissance Con, I don't want to donate right now. You're able to find a lot of things about the Renaissance. Okay? And it's usually it's gonna be here. It's gonna be the first couple ones. For example, in this class, next week we'll focus on Renaissance arts, architecture, and sculpture, and compare it to medieval. So here's some of the key words that you will need to know. If I can find my notes. For example, you will need to know Gothic, flying, buttress. You will need to know some of the major works of the Renaissance. I can make a list and email you guys. For example, Michelangelo's David, the Mona Lisa, Michelangelo's Pieta, Michelangelo's Ceiling Sistine Chapel. So again, that's something that we're gonna focus on next week. But try to learn as much as you can about the Renaissance. There's a ton to know, and when you're playing a game, I'm like, wait, there's a lot to know, and you're playing a game. Like you can't do that. Please don't do that. You do have a quiz, most likely Monday. So I'm not sure exactly when I come back to work, but you do have a lot of review to do, and if you absolutely need to, don't have anything to do, you can start working on these pages. It's fine with me. Okay, we're gonna probably work on these on Thursday, and I might come back on Friday, and we'll continue working. I will see you guys soon. Again, today you're working on this video, which is a lot longer than what you're used to. And you're also working on a newsdaily article. And if you finish, do not play games. Do not do off-topic tasks. Instead, research the Renaissance. Pick an artist. How about this? Pick Michelangelo. Pick Leonardo. And tell me, what are some of their major works? Or figure out what are some of the major works. What makes them like the epitome? Why are they so famous? What makes them the epitome of Renaissance works? Yeah, I'll see you guys soon.